now.
Welcome to the Backyard Brothers podcast. We have a good agenda on the board today. We're going to talk some memories of different types, good and bad, some blunders. We're going to talk about college football as that wraps up, and then talk little NBA and whatever else comes up in this topic. But first of all, we're going to talk about a memory, a good, exciting sports memory. And so for that, Scott, we'll lead off for you. What is your memory for the week?
It's been a while since we've done a memory. We've had a lot of packed agendas, so it's nice to get back to this a little bit. But I thought since we've had college football wrapping up, we should talk about a college football memory that I recall really well from the various things that were going on in our personal lives as well as uh, the topic there. So it's the 2005 NCAA football season, 2006 NCAA championship between the heavily favored USC and Texas. Last time either one of those teams has been in the national championship, by the way. Oh, that's actually not true. Never mind. Texas was in 2010. Never mind. But they lost that one. Anyway, so this was a whole bunch of great recruits. We had Matt Leinart at quarterback for USC. Reggie Bush was in his final season there at USC. He had won the Heisman already, and those were the two main ones on offense. There were tons of others, receivers, defenders, and they were coached by the incomparable Pete Carroll, taking that USC team, trying to win back-to-back NCAA championships. They had just won one the previous year over Oklahoma. And Texas, coached by Mac Brown. Vince Young at quarterback came in second in the Heisman Trophy voting to Reggie Bush. And so the two best players in college football going up against each other. And everyone was expecting a really good game, high scoring, but in the end, all of the analysts said, sorry, as good as Texas's offense is, USC's offense is just better. And USC was going to win that game. And it was as good as they predicted. It came down to the final possession. I think it went in overtime. I can't remember now. I didn't do my research previously, but it may have gone in overtime, or it may have just been the final possession of the fourth quarter. But Vince Young ran it in from about 20 yards away and leapt from about the 2 yard line and put the ball over the pylon on the way to the end zone to win the game. And it was a great football game and a great ending. One of the best complete football games in college football that I have seen ever. And I was watching it at a stranger's house because I had just moved with only my dad to Arkansas to kind of get my the second half of my junior year started in a new school. And you two stayed behind in Indiana, and we're going to come a little bit later. So it was just me and my dad at a essentially a stranger's house, and we became good friends with them later. They were the Hyatts that had moved away since, but anyway, I think my dad and I were the only ones in that whole house going for Texas. Everyone else was USC fans in that game, but it was quite the finish, quite the game, and two of the best programs in college football history. Some of the greatest players, some of the greatest coaches. That's the kind of national championship game we should all be given access to watch to those two teams. Any thoughts on that before I bring up one more piece of that?
I think, yeah. I mean, I went back and watched the highlights for that, which, of course, how I would have been 11, I think, when that, not even that, I was probably 10, turning 11 that year. And so, as I mean, I liked football, but I couldn't sit down and watch a game. So I probably didn't watch this game. And so I went back and watched the highlights of it. And I mean, you got Reggie Bush is an all-time classic name. Everyone knows who he is. He's one of the most famous college players of all time, who honestly deserves to have his Heisman reinstated. That can be another conversation. but like you said, Matt Leinart, and then honestly, I'd always thought until recently that Vince Young played at Tennessee and not Texas. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought he'd always played at Tennessee. Anyways, having them duel off is, as you said, the game we all deserved. And that's exactly what it ended up being. And to answer your question, I don't think it went into overtime. I think it was that final possession.
It went back and forth. I think Reggie Bush scored, and then Vince Young scored just a few minutes later. Final possession.
Yeah,
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 final
but it
play.
is absolutely just astonishing to see Reggie Bush play. Even though we've seen it all, we've seen all the highlights. Still, every time we watch it, it's just how do you do that? Um, and it is amazing. But yeah, it was a great game, and that should be the goal for every championship game is something that lives up to that kind of hype. That's something that lives up to that kind of TV ratings. Something that lives up to those, star calibers playing, opposite sides of each other.
Yeah. So I have memory of this game, and I it's a memory that I kick myself with because so looking up here, but with about 6.5 minutes left, USC is up by 12. And me, I'm 15 years old or something like that, 13, 14 years old, whatever it is. And I think it's played on like a Monday night, and so I'm tired. And with USC up by two scores with 6.5 minutes left, I'm falling asleep on the couch, and I go to bed knowing that USC has won the game. I went to bed, and it wasn't until I'm at school the next morning that somebody said Texas won, and I said, "No, they didn't. You're lying." And of course, then learned about what happened and went back and was just watching ESPN. Couldn't go YouTube things at this point, but we just watching ESPN, watched everything that happened, and that Vince Young scored 2 running touchdowns in the last 4 minutes of the game. So an incredible game. And I looked up some stats. Vince Young had almost 500 total yards of offense all by himself, to more than 200 rushing yards and 270 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. And so, as good as Reggie Bush ever was, Vince Young was the greatest, perhaps the greatest performance of any college player in the history of the game.
Yeah,
Vince Young and that to win that game.
I know we're over time on this agenda, but I just wanted to mention that absolutely, Vince Young ended up being I think he was the second overall pick in that following draft by the Titans, where he played most of his career there. And Reggie Bush was drafted later on, maybe the 10th or 11th pick. I can't remember quite what it was there, but based on both of those players being some of the best college football players of all time, projecting where they went, they kind of both underwhelmed in the NFL a little bit. Reggie Bush was a great receiving back and could make plays in the open field and as a returner, but that was kind of it. And Vince Young had maybe 1 or 2 good years, went to the Pro Bowl, I think twice, but after that kind of fizzled out and didn't have much after that. But it just shows that it's so different going from college to the NFL. You can have 2 of the best, unquestionably 2 of the best college football players of all time right there. And neither one of them will make the Hall of Fame in the NFL. But,
yeah. Well, since we're talking about college football, let's segue into the college football playoff. Cody, can you kick us off with some topics here?
Yeah, well, I mean, so first off, let's say we have this weekend, which is going to be championship weekend for all the conference championships. So once that weekend goes into, or once that we get out of that weekend, we'll have obviously a good idea or a perfect idea of what's going to be happening there. As of right now, we have, I think it was Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, Washington number 3, and Florida State number 4, with the first 2 out being Oregon and I think Ohio State.
yeah.
So I think obviously good teams, good selections. I think that something that I've noticed over the years, especially last year, we want to give teams who are the most deserving the opportunity to play in the national championship, which has a very good argument with it. But there's others who say no, it just needs to be the best teams, which sometimes may not be the most deserving. Last year, TCU was arguably one of the most deserving teams. That's why they went there. But then they got blown out. What was it, like 60 something to 7 or something? I don't even know what it was. Something with like 30, 40 point gap. Which is the complete opposite of what that USC Texas game would have been exactly. So, which is not, we're trying to get replicas of that Texas USC game. So, I guess my question, my thought originally was, is there something that needs to be done with the whether AP poll or with the selection committee that can better represent or get an idea of who can be the best teams in the in the playoffs and the championship without favoring the same teams over and over again? Is there a better way, or do we have the best system?
The answer starts next year with a playoff. This year is the end of this era. We're never going to see just 4 teams in the playoff again. So next year is what answers that question, and we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be, even in a couple of years, they're going to be saying, "Oh, we need to expand it to 16 teams," and maybe they do, but I don't know. It's gonna help a lot expanding it to 12 playoff teams, because this year I haven't seen it in a long time where you have the top 4 teams all undefeated. None of them have lost. We haven't seen that in a long time. And so right now, all 4 of those teams deserve to play for the national championship, because all 4 of them have not lost. Now, if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, it throws a wrench into it. If Oregon gets revenge and beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, then I think certainly Oregon takes Washington's place, maybe. I don't see a scenario which Ohio State gets back to the playoff, though. So.
Yeah, like you said, Scott, that the solution starts next year, which is great. Then to kind of play on a little bit of what you said, Cody, like about the best teams. If the goal was to get the best teams there, then we wouldn't play a season. They wouldn't play football. The selection committee would choose the 4 teams that have the best recruiting class and get the highest number of viewers and have them play 1 game for the most money. Yep. There'd be no point to a season. And so the most deserving team should be there. And the most deserving team last year was TCU, because they competed throughout their entire season and won that and deserved to be there. And there'll be other times that a team deserves to be there because of the way that they played in their season and the way they competed in their conference. That's the point of playing the game, is to try to get to that championship level at the end. And so I'm excited to see more of that, more deserving teams get into the 12-team playoff come next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Not more to that. I mean, do want to mention that Michigan plays Iowa, but is there any thought that Iowa could actually win that game? I don't think so. And Florida State, who do they play this week?
Louisville.
Yeah. No disrespect to those other teams, but Florida State and Michigan will remain undefeated after this weekend.
It's interesting because I agree with you that there's no way, right, that Michigan loses. There's no way that Florida State loses. But at the same time, I know we all thought that way about Michigan TCU last year. There's no way TCU beats Michigan. There's no way that happens, and yet they did. And so, and just like Dustin was saying, it's why we play the game, right? And so it's the excitement that there's always a potential of upsets. And so of course we're thinking, no, there's no way. Michigan is way too good, and that's probably true, and they probably are going to win. But we should all know better as well by now that it could happen. It could happen.
That's true.
Okay. All right. Well, staying in the realm of football, let's hop over to NFL and talk about about the Carolina firing Frank Reich, and we talked about this a little offline. Let's take it take an online talk public about some of our thoughts and all of this. Who wants to lead off there?
Well, I have a couple of different takes, but I'll bring my first take on was that first of all, I do not agree with firing a coach in the first year. Unless there are extenuating circumstances. When Urban Meyer is verbally abusive to his players, he deserves to go in the first year. When Nathaniel Hackett is as bad as he was against Denver last year, he might deserve to go. Was Frank Reich in that situation? He might have been, honestly. Carolina had they had a really good free agency when they brought over Adam Thielen and Miles Sanders and DJ Chark and Hayden Hurst and all of these really good players to try to build around a rookie quarterback. And every week they seem to get worse. They didn't have any points, offensive consistency. Frank Reich was hired for his ability to work with quarterbacks, and Bryce Young looks lost. And so if that is completely what you're basing it on, that I need to save my future franchise quarterback that's losing confidence every week, then maybe that's the way to go. I'll stop there because I have more, but that's my first initial take.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you, Scott. I think, I have my philosophy of I think it's 3 years is the default amount of time, in my opinion, that a coach should have at their organization before the consideration of being fired. Yes, with those exceptions like Urban Meyer, or just horrible coaching like Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett, I may have even still given another year, possibly. Um, but generally, I go with a 3-year rule. So I definitely disagree that for him to be fired at this point. I think there's a lot of other ideas they could have done, such as hiring a different QB coach, or bringing in an additional QB coach. Maybe taking off of Frank Reich's shoulders his, duty of trying to worry about Bryce Young and focus more. You're the head coach. Focus on the whole team, and that kind of thing. I think I would have done a few more things before I just said, okay, you're done. And maybe they did. I don't know. I doubt it, but I don't think they would have within 1 year have done all those things. And so I disagree with the firing that early. He is a good coach. He's proved it before, so I know he can coach. And I think the Panthers made a mistake there.
Yeah, we're all in agreement that there was a mistake to be made. Like you said, we don't know what other circumstance exists, but from an outside perspective, something we all said offline was, what expectations did ownership have for this season? Did they expect Frank Reich to take this team to be a playoff team? Did they expect Bryce Young to light it up in the way that CJ Stroud is lighting it up? What expectations did they have for that, and how far off were they from those expectations to justify a mid-season firing? And so it seems like the expectations that ownership set is what ultimately led to their downfall, because there's going to be a last in the league, and Carolina Panthers are still competing for last in the league. There's still there could be other teams that they beat out for last in the league, and so it's not quite there yet, but you need to have some sort of expectations leading into a season, and they need to be realistic, which it may not have been if they fire a coach midseason.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do agree with that too. It sets up the next coach to be really difficult to hire, because with all these interviews with whoever they're going to hire, you're going in with the expectation that you're going to turn around this team immediately into being a playoff team, or you're gone. And who wants to take that job, especially with the roster that's as young as inexperienced and full of holes as Carolina is? I mean, sure, it can happen. It's happened before, but I don't know many coaches that are going to take that kind of risk.
Yeah, I don't. They've dug themselves a hole. Really, they've dug themselves a hole.
Well, while we're on the topic, coaches that are doing the other side, that are doing better than expected, teams doing better than expected. I wanted to talk get a little discussion about the Colts and the Falcons, two teams that are, at least from our viewpoint, exceeding expectations. Both of them in the playoff hunt right now, and kind of our thoughts on that for the season. Cody, do you want to give us some thoughts on either of these teams?
Yeah, I think I'm more surprised. I think I'm more surprised with the Colts right now. I've been very impressed, pleasantly surprised with Shane Steichen, and what he's been able to do with that team, and that they have been able to still stay on a steady upward trajectory even without their quarterback, Anthony Richardson. They have a great backup in Gardner Minshew. He's been doing well, and I think they just lost Jonathan Taylor. I'm not sure if it's for the rest of the season or if it's just for a few games or not. But it's either way, it's for at least half the rest of the season at this point. And so I'm really impressed with his ability, with Shane Steichen's ability to coach this team, lead this team right now in that division that has the Jaguars in it and that has the surging Texans in it. And so they're doing really well. As far as the Falcons go, I did predict kind of at the beginning of the year that the Falcons would be doing well. I think they're leading their division right now, and so which we all know it's a weak division. Um, but I'm also kind of surprised at the same time that they are doing well when they're really just run the ball. That's all they do, and they don't have a very good passing attack right now. And then I know Dustin, you've mentioned a few times that Arthur Smith is an idiot, and I think I agree with you. And so I'm kind of, even though I predicted the Falcons to be where they are right now, I'm kind of surprised at why they are at the same time.
Um, yeah, I agree with most of that. The what I'm so surprised in is that the AFC South has three teams with winning records. I and that none of them are the Titans. But so the Jaguars are leading that division, which Dustin and I predicted would happen anyway. The Texans have been really good, although they lost last week to the Jaguars. And the Colts, I predicted them to be the second worst team in the NFL. I said right below, right above the Cardinals. And Shane Steichen, yeah, he's been really impressive getting this team to play at the level they're playing. And so at this point I'm counting my prediction wrong, that the Colts are way ahead of their rebuilding process. And so I've been impressed with them. The other side, the NFC South has been even worse than I thought it would be. And I thought it was going to be the worst division in the NFL. It's an embarrassing division, really. The loser or the winner of this division is still not in the top half of the NFL. The Falcons beat the Saints last week, which, I thought the Saints were the going to win that division, but someone has to win that division, and might as well be the Falcons. But it doesn't really matter. Whoever's going to win that division is going to lose a home playoff game. But
yeah, with the Colts, great coaching, but I also want to say I think great general manager, great ownership, and getting this team set up. Not knowing what to do with Jonathan Taylor and bringing in Zach Moss and having a good rushing attack there, and then with Taylor being out now, having that there. Yeah, there's your name drop, Cody. And then also with Anthony Richardson, knowing that he has injury trouble and having a stable, well-tested quarterback in Gardner Minshew there ready to take over the reins in case he went down, and then when he did. And so I think this is a great team management, general manager as well, having the Colts ready for success despite who goes down, because there's every team, we see it every year. In fact, we see it with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow goes down and Cincinnati says, well, our season wasn't great anyway. I guess we'll just tank now. And instead it's the Colts say, no, we're going to compete as best as we can, no matter who's playing.
And there's a piece of that that you didn't mention that's important as well, and that's that Gardner Minshew came over with Shane Steichen from Philadelphia. He already knew that system. He was already experienced in that system. That's another piece of that that it shouldn't be lost, is that that was part of Shane Steichen's plan. If Anthony Richardson doesn't work out, I have a quarterback that knows my system inside and out, and that's what happened. And not for any fault of Anthony Richardson, other than he breaks like China, but. Other than that, Gardner Minshew knows the system, and Michael Pittman has been one heck of a receiver this year too. So
Great. So we'll do a segue over to a brief check-in with the NBA. Kind of we're almost 20% of the way, almost 25% of the way through the season. Most teams have been playing between 17 and 20 games so far. Give a little health check on some of these teams that I'll lead off, and any comments from anyone. But a couple surprises. So in the NBA, starting with the Eastern Conference, I think the biggest surprise here is the Orlando Magic. 12-5, third in the Eastern Conference right now.
13-5.
13-5. Thank you. Paulo Banchero is absolutely fantastic. Averaging close to 20 points a game. Just playing out of his mind in his sophomore season here. Absolutely exceeding expectations. And this team, hopefully they can keep it going and be strong there. Then the other team in the East that I'm surprised by is the Pacers, Indiana Pacers, specifically with Tyrese Halliburton. He's averaging something like 26 and 12. He's and currently on a 50-40-90 pace. So he is playing at a level of play that you see from first team All NBA type of players. Any responses from you on Eastern Conference teams that I've mentioned, or any others?
Those were the two teams I was going to point out too. For the good, and everything else has kind of been per usual, except maybe the Bulls that have really fallen off too. That's the only one that I'd mention on the bad side, that they should be better than that with the lineup they have. So
I think the only thing I want to mention, it's more humorous as well, and a shot at myself. In my prediction for the championship, I had Charlotte being in the championship game, and right now they're not even they're on the outside looking in the playoffs right now. I mean, we're like you said, they're 20%, 25% of the way in. And that's a crazy, weird, bold prediction. I don't know why I made that, but I'm looking at that. I'm just laughing at myself. So.
Yeah, I think the Hornets have a lot to be excited about if they can keep a young core together. They have a good young core. Brandon Miller is playing pretty good, and so I think they should be happy with that draft pick and how he's pairing with LaMelo Ball. Western Conference, a couple teams to shout out. I want to talk about the Timberwolves. I need to eat some crow there. I expect them to be out of the playoffs, and they're currently number one. They're currently leading the West, best team in the West right now, and so that I'm pleasantly surprised with them. Other team that I'll pat myself on the back for is the Suns have won 7 in a row. And have climbed into fourth in the West. I think that their star power is starting to gel together. And then we've talked before about the Grizzlies are currently 14th, only won 3 games so far. This is a team that was second in the West last year, and full of award winners and all-stars, and for them to drop all the way down there, despite all of the offseason moves they made with bringing over Marcus Smart, there's definitely a lot of panic going there, and you can't just expect John Morant to come in and save the day.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Especially when you've only won 3 games in 16 tries, you still have 9 more games before John Morant can come in. And at this pace, you're going to lose almost 20 games by the time he gets back. And yeah, I don't know if they can fix that in that competitive West. It's almost a lost season, and it's all because I don't know if it's all because of John Morant. Maybe they would be bad if he was playing. I don't know if one player can fix a team that's 3-13 without him. I don't know, but we'll see. Also, I want to talk about the Timberwolves too. How they're winning these games. That defense is top notch. Rudy Gobert has finally figured out whatever went wrong last year. Maybe the Timberwolves have figured out how to play him a little bit better. Him and Towns together for sure. I think they're third in defense right now, just behind the New York Knicks, and the number one team I wanted to talk about, Houston Rockets, are the number one defensive team in the NBA right now, and they're in the playoffs at number 8, and that's surprise to all three of us based on our predictions right now. Fred VanVleet is really good, and he's on an all-star pace right now.
I think the only thing I want to mention, besides what we already said, is Golden State. I'm pretty sure that we all had talked about Golden State, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we put them on a pedestal, but something similar to that, But how they have some of the best players, especially Steph Curry, and they're sitting at the last spot in the playoffs right now in the West. So, not sure what's going on there, but they probably want to figure some things out to get to where they honestly belong.
Yeah, 2-8 in their last 10.
Yeah, they're struggling, and they've had injuries and suspensions, and struggling with Draymond the Rock Green, and what everything that he is doing. The last one that I'd mention is the Thunder. If it weren't for all the attention and how well that Wemby is playing, Chet Holmgren would absolutely be the one that everyone's focused on. He is playing absolutely fantastic. He's playing just as good, if not better, than Wemby, and he's winning games.
Right. Yeah. That'll be a fantastic rookie of the year race between those two guys. Yeah.
Good. All right, we got about 6 minutes left. What we wanted to do to fill this time, we'll see if we can do it all, is talk about some famous sports blunders. We talk about memories, and usually good, exciting, wonderful things happen. Let's talk about memories where someone messed up and it cost them a game or something else, and then was obviously a huge error. I can lead off with this, and then we'll go around. Staying with basketball, the big error I want to talk about is the 2018 NBA Finals. This is Golden State Warriors versus Cleveland Cavaliers. Game 1 is very close, and with just a few seconds left on the clock, George Hill's going to the free throw line, and the Cavs are down by 1. And he makes the first one, and it's tied. And then he misses the second one, and J.R. Smith grabs the rebound and dribbles it out. And they're able to call a timeout with like 1 second left on the clock because of all the confusion. And it was the discussion was all that J.R. Smith didn't know what the score was. He thought that they were winning, and so he's going to dribble the ball out. And because he did not know the score, they couldn't get a shot up and win it overtime. Golden State won the game and proceeded to sweep them in the series. So major blunder. You got to know the score. You have to know the score. He got the offensive rebound and was able to put the shot right back up, and didn't because he thought they were winning.
Yeah, I remember watching that one live and thinking, what is he doing? I know the score as a guy watching it. Of course, the score is right there on my bottom left, but not necessarily there for JR. But you got to know it, and the look LeBron gave him will forever be in everyone's memory. So yeah,
it is at the center of memes everywhere now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, who's next?
I'll go. I'm switching back over to football, and I don't even remember what year this was. Honestly, I think it was 2006, 7, something like that. Dallas Cowboys. This is so. In the previous 3 years, Tony Romo was an undrafted rookie out of Eastern Illinois, and he was the holder on field goal units. But when he took over the starting quarterback spot in 2007 or 8, whatever it was, he kept being the holder for the team. And so you don't see that anymore. You usually see the punter be the holder. But back then, Tony Romo was the starting quarterback and the holder that season. And they make it to the playoffs. They're in a wild card game against the Seahawks, and they're down by, I think it's just one or 2 points, and Tony Romo leads them on a drive all the way down to about the 10-yard line, and they take off all the time on the clock, and they say, okay, this is going to be about a 28-yard field goal. This is a chip shot, so this will send the Cowboys into the divisional round, and the snap goes back and it goes right through Tony Romo's hands. This is a guy that's been holding it all year long, and so he has to go pick it up, and now he has to run about 30 yards to score a touchdown to win the game in the final play of the game. He actually makes it about 27 yards, but he's tackled about the 3-yard line, and with that and no time left on the clock, Seahawks win the playoff game and Cowboys go home. And that was the last time in a long time that the Cowboys were even in a playoff game, let alone they hadn't won one since the NFC Championship game almost 14 years before, which they still haven't got back to. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, Romo led the team down. He put them in a position to win, and then just that one moment, the easiest job that he has of everything that he had done all game, which was to catch the ball and put it on the ground. And that's where it was. It's not the complex reading defenses thing. It's the simple thing. And so it's unfortunate, but yeah, huge blunder.
Yeah. And it's also unfortunate is people always remember you better for the mistakes that you make. Everyone knows Mark Sanchez for the butt fumble, but we also know that he was a good quarterback. I think it was his rookie year he took the Jets to the playoffs. I think so. I mean, that's something that people should talk about. Was that
to the AFC Championship game?
AFC Championship. So I mean, that should be what's talked about. But no, instead it's Mark Sanchez. Oh yeah, the butt fumble. And so it's kind of sad. That's kind of how it's done. But we have 1 minute left. I'll go ahead and go. Mine is I think it was 2017 Rams and Saints NFC Championship game, and it comes on the ref's fault here. Everyone knows about the no call pass interference pass to Tommy Lee Lewis or something his name was, and everyone knows it was pass interference. Everyone saw it. It was easily tellable, and they didn't call it. And it was one of the worst no calls I've ever seen, which even led to the next year them reviewing pass interference calls, which was a big change. That's no longer a thing, but it goes to show refs are humans too. They make mistakes, but that was one of the worst no calls I've ever seen.
And an NFC Championship game.
Should have been the Saints in the Super Bowl.
Rams lost.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's amazing. Like you said, refs are human. They make mistakes. So you had 8 refs on the field that apparently all made the mistake because any one of them could have thrown that flag.